she said. The faithful nymph descends from high, with rapid flight and cuts the sounding sky. Black clouds and stormy winds around her body fly. By this the Trojan and the Tuscan horse, drawn up in squadrons with united force, approach the walls the sprightly coursers bound, press forward on their bits and shift their ground. Shields, arms, and spears flash horrible from far, and the fields glitter with a waving war. Opposed to these come on with furious force Messapus, Coas, and the Latian horse. These, and the body placed on either hand, sustained and closed by fair Camilla's band. Advancing in a line they couch their spears, and less the middle space appears. Thick smoke obscures the field, and scarce are seen the neighing coursers and the shouting men. In distance of their thoughts they stop their course. Then man to man they rush, and horse to horse. The face of heaven their flying javelins hide, and deaths unseen are dealt on either side. Tyrrhenus and Acontius, void of fear, by metal coursers borne in full career, meet first opposed, and with a mighty shock their horses' heads against each other knock. Far from his steed is fierce Acontius cast, as with an engine's force or lightning's blast. He rolls along in blood and breathes his last. The Latin squadrons take a sudden fright, and sling their shields behind to save their backs in flight. Spurring at speed to their own walls they drew, close in the rear the Tuscan troops pursue, and urge their flight. As Sylas leads the chase, till, seized with shame, they wheel about and receive their foes, and raise a threatening cry. The Tuscan take their turn to fear and fly. So swelling surges were a thundering roar, driven on each other's backs and sought the shore, bound over the rocks and crouch upon the land, then far upon the beach eject the sand. Then backward with a swing they take their way, repulsed from upper ground, and seek their mother sea. With equal hurry quit the invaded shore, and swallow back the sand and stones they spewed before. Twice were the Tuscans master of the field, twice by the Latins in their turn repelled. Ashamed at length to the third charge they ran, both hosts resolved and mingled man to man. Now dying groans are heard, the fields are strewed with falling bodies and are drunk with blood. Arms, horses, men on heaps together lie. Confused the fight, and more confused the cry. Orsilochus, who durst not press too near, Strong Lemulus at distance drove his spear, and stuck the steel beneath his horse's ear. The fiery steed, impatient of the wound, curvets and springing upward with a bound, his helpless lord cast backward on the ground. Catulus pierced Aeolus first, then drew his reeking lance and at Hymenaeus threw, the mighty champion of the Tuscan crew. His neck and throat unarmed, his head was bare, but shaded with a length of yellow hair. Secure, he fought, exposed on every port, a spacious moor for swords and for the flying door. Across the shoulders came the fettered wound. Transfixed he fell and toppled to the ground. The sands with streaming blood or sanguine dyed, and death with honor sought on either side. Resistless to the war, Camilla rode, in danger unappalled and pleased with blood. One side was bare for her exerted breast, one shoulder with a painted quiver pressed. Now from afar her fatal javelins played, now with her axe's head she hews her way. Diana's arms upon her shoulder sound, and when too closely pressed she quits the ground. From her bent bow she sends a backward wound. Her maids in martial pomp on either side, Larina, Tula, fierce Tarpeia ride. Italians all, in peace their queens delight, in war the bold companions of the fight. So march the Thracian Amazons of old, when Thermodon with bloody billows rolled. Such troops as these in shining arms were seen, when Theseus met in fight their maiden queen. Such to the field Penthesilea led, from the fierce Virgin when the Grecians fled. With such returned triumphant from the war, her maids with cries attend the lofty core. They clash with manly force their moony shields, with female shouts resound the Phrygian fields. Who foremost and who last, heroic maid, on the cold earth whereby thy courage laid? Thy spear of mountain ash, Eumeneus first, with fury driven from side to side transpierced. A purple stream came spouting from the wound. Bathed in his blood he lies and bites the ground. Liris and Pegasus at once he slew, the former as the slackened reins he drew of his faint steed, the latter as he stretched his arm to prop his friend the javelin reached. By the same weapon sent from the same hand, both fall together and both spurn the sand. Amastrus next is added to the slain, the rest in rout she follows o'er the plain. Tereus, Harpalucus, Demophoon, and Chromis at full speed her fury shun. Of all her deadly darts not one she lost, each was attempted with a Trojan ghost. Young Æneid bestrode a hunter's steed, swift for the chase and of Apulian breed. Him from afar she spied in arms unknown, o'er his broad back an ox's hide was thrown. His helm a wolf, whose gaping jaws were spread, a covering for his cheeks and grinned around his head. He clenched within his hand an iron prong, and towered above the rest conspicuous in the throng. Him soon she singled from the flying train, and slew with ease, then thus insults the slain. Vain hunter, didst thou think through woods to chase the savage herd, a vile and trembling race? Here seize thy wants and own my victory. A woman warrior was too strong for thee. Yet if the ghosts demand the conqueror's name, confessing great Camilla, save thy shame. Then Bootes and Orsilochus she slew, the bulkiest bodies of the Trojan crew. But Bootes breast to breast, the spear descends above the gorget where his helmet ends, and o'er the shield which his left side defends. Orsilochus and she their coursers ply. He seems to follow, and she seems to fly. But in an narrow ring she makes the race, and then he flies, and she pursues the chase. Gathering at length on her deluded foe, she swings her axe and rises to the blow. Full on the helm behind, with such a sway, the weapon falls, the riven steel gives way. He groans, he roars, he sues in vain for grace. Brains mingle with his blood, besmear his face. Astonished Aunus just arrives by chance to see his foe no farther dares advance. But fixing on the horrid maid his eyes, he stares and shakes and finds it vain to fly. Yet, like a true Ligurian born to cheat, at least while fortune favored his deceit, cries out aloud, "What courage have you shown, who trust your courser's strength and not your own? Forgo the vantage of your horse alight, and then on equal terms begin the fight. It shall be seen, weak woman, what you can, when, foot to foot, you combat with a man." He said. She glows with anger and disdain, dismounts with speed to dare him on the plain, and leaves her horse at large among her train. With her drawn sword defies him to the field, and marching lifts along her maiden shield. The youth, who thought his cunning did succeed, reins round his horse and urges all his speed. Adds the remembrance of the spur and hides the goring rowels in his bleeding sides. Vain fool and coward, cries the lofty maid, caught in the train which thou thyself hast laid. On others practice thy Ligurian arts, thin stratagems and tricks of little hordes, are lost on me, nor shalt thou safe retire with wanting lies to thy fallacious sire. At this, so fast her flying feet she sped, that soon she strained beyond his horse's head. Then turning short at once she seized the rein, and laid the boaster growling on the plain. Not with more ease the falcon from above trusses in mid-air the trembling dove. Then plumes the prey in her strong pounces bound. The feathers foul with blood come tumbling to the ground. Now mighty Jove from his superior height, with his broad eye surveys the unequal fight. He fires the breast of Thorkin with disdain, and sends him to redeem the abandoned plain. Betwixt the broken ranks the Tuscan rides, and these encourages, and those he chides. Recalls each leader by his name from flight, renews their order, and restores the fight. What panic fear has seized your souls, O shame, O brand perpetual of the Etrurian name? Cowards incurable, a woman's hand drives, breaks, and scatters your ignoble band. Now cast away the sword and quit the shield. What use of weapons which you dare not wield? Not thus you fly your female foes by night, nor shun the feast when the full bulls invite. When to fat offerings the glad orca calls, and the shrill hornpipe sounds to bacchanals. These are your studied cares, your lute delight, swift to debauch, but slow to manly fight. Thus, having set, he spurs amid the foes, not managing the life he meant to lose. The first he found he seized with headlong haste, in his strong gripe and clasp around the waist. 'Twas Venulus, who from his horse he tore, and led athwart his own in triumph bore. Loud shouts ensue, the Latins turn their eyes, and view the unusual sight with vast surprise. The fiery Torcan, flying o'er the plains, pressed in his arms the ponderous prey sustains. Then with his shortened spear explores around his jointed arms to fix a deadly wound. Nor less the captive struggles for his life. He rights his body to prolong the strife, and fencing for his naked throat exerts his utmost vigor, and the point averts. So stoops the yellow eagle from on high, and bears a speckled serpent to the sky, fastening his crooked talons on the prey. The prisoner hisses through the liquid wave, resists the royal hawk, and though oppressed, she fights in volumes and erects her crest. Turned to her foe she stiffens every scale, and shoots her forky tongue and whisks her threatening tail. Against the victor all defense is weak. The imperial bird still plies her with his beak. He tears her bowels and her breast he gores, then claps his pinions and securely soars. Thus, through the midst of circling enemies, strong Torquon snatched and bore away his prize. The Tyrrhene troops that shrunk before now press the Latins and presume the like success. Then Auruns, doomed to death his words essayed, to murder unespied the Volscian maid. This way and that his winding course he bends, and wheresoever she turns her step attends. When she retires victorious from the chase, he wheels about with care and shifts his place. When rushing on she seeks her foe's flight, he keeps aloof but keeps her still in sight. He threats and tramples, trying every way, unseen to kill and safely to betray. Glorious the priest of Cybele from fore, glittering in Phrygian arms amidst the war, was by the Virgin viewed. The steed he pressed was proud with trappings, and his brawny chest with scales of gilded brass was covered o'er. A robe of Tyrian dye the rider wore. With deadly wounds he galled the distant foe, Gnacian his shaft and Lycian was his bow. A golden helm his front and head surrounds, a gilded quiver from his shoulder sounds. Gold weaved with linen on his thighs he wore, with flowers of needlework distinguished o'er, with golden buckles round and gathered up before. Him the fierce maid beheld with ardent eyes, fond and ambitious of so rich a prize, or that the temple might his trophies hold, or else to shine herself in Trojan gold. Blind in her haste she chases him alone, and seeks his life regardless of her own. This lucky moment the sly traitor chose, then starting from his ambush up he rose, and through but first to heaven addressed his vows. O patron of Socrates' high abodes, Phoebus the ruling power among the gods, whom first we serve, whole woods of unctuous pine are felt for thee and to thy glory shine. By thee protected with our naked souls, through flames unsinged we march and threat the kindled coals. Give me propitious power to wash away the stains of this dishonorable day. Nor spoils nor triumph from the fact I claim, but with my future actions trust my fame. Let me by stealth this female plague overcome, and from the field return inglorious home. Apollo heard, and granting half his prayer, shuffled in winds the rest, and tossed in empty air. He gives the death desired, his safe return, by sudden tempest to the seas is borne. Now when the javelin whistled along the skies, both armies on Camilla turned their eyes, directed by the sound of either host. The unhappy virgin, though concerned the most, was only deaf. So greedy was she bent on golden spoils and on her prey intent, till in her pap the winged weapon stood, infixed and deeply drunk the purple blood. Her sad attendants hastened to sustain their dying lady, drooping on the plain. For from their sight the trembling Aruns flies, with beating heart and fear confused with joys. Nor dares he farther to pursue his blow, or even to bear the sight of his expiring foe, as when the wolf has torn a bullock's hide, at unawares, or wrenched a shepherd's side. Conscious of his audacious deed, he flies, and claps his quivering tail between his thighs. So, speeding once, the wretch no more attempts, but spurring forward, hurts among his friends. She wrenched the javelin with her dying hands, but wedged within her breast the weapon stands. The wood she draws, the steely point remains. She staggers in her seat with agonizing pains. A gathering mist overclouds her cheerful eyes, and from her cheeks the rosy color flies. Then turns to her whom of her female train she trusted most, and thus she speaks with pain. Aka, 'tis past, he swims before my sight, inexorable death, and claims his right. Bear my last words to Turnus, fly with speed, and bid him timely to my charge succeed. Repel the Trojans and the town relieve. Farewell, and in this kiss my parting breath receive. She said, and sliding sunk upon the plain. Dying, her open hand forsakes the rain. Short and more short she pants, by slow degrees, her mind the passage from her body frees. She drops her sword, she nods her plumy crest, her drooping head declining on her breast. In the last sigh, her struggling soul expires, and, murmuring with disdain, to Stygian sounds retires. A shout that struck the golden stores ensued. Despair and rage the language fight renewed. The Trojan troops and Tuscans in a line advanced to charge the mixed Arcadians join. But Cynthia's maid, high-seated from afar, surveys the field and fortune of the war. Unmoved awhile till prostrate on the plain, weltering in blood, she sees Camilla slain. And round her corpse of friends and foes a fighting train. Then from the bottom of her breast she drew a mournful sigh, and these sad words ensue. Too dear a fine, much lamented maid, for warring with the Trojans thou hast paid, nor aught availed in this unhappy strife, Diana's sacred arms to save thy life. Yet unrevenged, thy goddess will not leave her watery's death, nor with vain sorrow grieve. Branded the wretch, and be his name abhorred, but after ages shall thy praise record. The inglorious coward soon shall press the plain, thus vows thy queen, and thus the fates ordain. High over the field there stood a hilly mount, sacred the place and spread with oaks around, where in a marble tomb their Canus lay, a king that once in Latium bore the sway. The beauteous Opis thither bent her flight, to mark the traitor Aruns from the height. Him in refulgent arms she soon espied, swollen with success, and loudly thus she cried: Thy backward steps, vain boaster, are too late. Turn like a man at length, and meet thy fate. Charged with my message, to Camilla go, and say I sent thee to the shades below, an honor undeserved from Cynthia's bow. She said, and from her quiver chose with speed the winged shaft predestined for the deed. Then to the stubborn yew her strength applied, till the four distant horns approached on either side. The bowstring touched her breast, so strong she drew. Whizzing in air, the fatal arrow flew. At once the twanging bow and sounding dart, the traitor heard and felt the point within his heart. Him beating with his heels in pangs of death, his flying friends to foreign fields bequeath. The conquering damsel with expanded wings, the welcome message to her mistress brings. Their leader lost the Volscians, quit the field, and unsustained the chiefs of Turnus yield. The frighted soldiers, when their captains fly, more on their speed than on their strength rely. Confused in fight, they bear each other down and spur their horses headlong to the town. Driven by their foes and to their fears resigned, not once they turn but take their wounds behind. These drop the shield and those the lance forego, or on their shoulders bear the slackened bow. The hoof of horses with a rattling sound, the beat short and thick and shake the rotten ground. Black clouds of dust come rolling in the sky, and over the darkened walls and rampires fly the trembling matrons from their lofty stands, rend a heaven with female shrieks and wring their hands. All pressing on, pursuers and pursued are crushed in crowds, a mingled multitude. Some happy few escape the throng too late, rushed on for entrance till they choke the gate. Even in the sight of home the wretched sire looks on and sees his helpless son expire. Then in affright the folding gates they close, but leave their friends excluded with their foes. The vanquished cry, the victors loudly shout, 'tis terror all within and slaughter all without. Blind in their fear, they bounce against the wall, or to the most pursuit precipitate their fall. The Latian virgins, valiant with despair, armed on the towers the common danger share. So much of zeal their country's cause inspired, so much Camilla's great example fired. Poles sharpened in the flames from high they throw, with imitated darts to gall the foe. Their lives for godlike freedom they bequeath, and crowd each other to be first in death. Meantime to Turnus ambushed in the shade, with heavy tidings came the unhappy maid. The Volscians overthrown, Camilla killed, the foes entirely masters of the field. Like a resistless flood come rolling on, the cry goes off the plain and thickens to the town. Inflamed with rage, for so the furious fire, the Daunian breast, and so the fates require. He leaves the hilly pass, the woods in vain possessed, and downward issues on the plain. Scarce was he gone, when to the straits, now freed from secret foes, the Trojan troops succeed. Through the black forest and the ferny brake, unknowingly secure they way they take. From the rough mountains to the plain descent, and there in order drawn their line extend. Both armies now in open fields are seen, nor for the distance of the space between. Both to the city bent, Aeneas sees, through smoking fields his hastening enemies, and Turnus views the Trojans in array, and hears the approaching horses proudly neigh. Soon had their hosts in bloody battle joined, but westward to the sea the sun declined. Entrenched before the town, both armies lie, while night with sable wings involves the sky. Book 12. When Turnus saw the Latians leave the field, their armies broken and their courage quelled, himself become the mark of public spite, his honor questioned for the promised fight. The more he was with vulgar hate oppressed, the more his fury boiled within his breast. He roused his vigor for the last debate, and raised his haughty soul to meet his fate. As when the swains the Libyan lion chase, he makes a sour retreat nor mends his pace. But if the pointed javelin pierce his side, the lordly beast returns with double pride. He wrenches out the steel, he roars for pain, his sides he lashes and erects his mane. So Turnus fares, his eyeballs flash with fire, through his wide nostrils clouds of smoke expire. Trembling with rage around the court he ran, at length approached the king and thus began. No more excuses or delays I stand, in arms prepared to combat hand to hand. This base deserter of his native land, the Trojan by his sword is bound to take the same conditions which himself did make. Renew the truce, the solemn rites prepare, and to my single virtue trust the war. The Latians, unconcerned, shall see the fight. This arm, unaided, shall assert your right. Then, if my prostrate body press the plain, to him the crown and beauteous bride remain. To whom the king sedately thus replied, brave youth, the more your valor has been tried, the more becomes it us with due respect to weigh the chance of war which you neglect. You want not wealth or a successive throne, or cities which your arms have made your own. My towns and treasures are at your command, and stored with blooming beauties is my land. Laurentum more than one Lavinia sees, unmarried, fair, of noble families. Now let me speak, and you with patience hear, things which perhaps may grate a lover's ear, but sound advice proceeding from a heart sincerely yours, and free from fraudful art. The gods by sighs have manifestly shown, no prince Italian born should heir my throne. Oft have all augurs in prediction skilled, and oft all priests foreign son revealed. Yet one by worth that cannot be withstood, bribed by my kindness to my kindred blood, urged by my wife who would not be denied, I promised my Lavinia for your bride. Her from her plighted lord by force I took, all ties of treaties and of honor broke. On your account I waged an impious war, with what success 'tis needless to declare. I and my subject feel, and you have had your share. Twice vanquished while in bloody fields we strive, scarce in our walls we keep our hopes alive. The rolling flood runs warm with human gore, the bones of nations blanch in the neighboring shore. Why put I not an end to this debate, still unresolved and still a slave to fate? If Turnus' death a lasting peace can give, why should I not procure it whilst you live? Should I to doubtful arms your youth betray, what would my kinsmen, the Rutulians, say? And should you fall in fight, which heaven defend, how curse the cause which hastened to his end, the daughter's lover and the father's friend? Weigh in your mind the various chants of war, pity your parent's age, and ease his care. Such balmy words he poured, but all in vain. The proffered medicine but provoked the pain. The wrathful youth disdaining the relief, when intermittent sobs thus vents his grief. The care, O best of fathers, which you take, for my concerns and my desire forsake, permit me not to languish out my days, but make the best exchange of life for praise. This orm, this lance can well dispute the price, and the blood follows where the weapon flies. His goddess mother is not near to shroud the flying coward with an empty cloud. But now the queen, who feared for Turnus' life, and loathed the hard conditions of the strife, held him by force, and, dying in his death, in these sad accents gave her soul breath. O Turnus, I adjure thee by these tears, and whatever price Æneid's honor bears, within thy breast, since thou art all my hope, my sickly mind repose, my sinking age's prop. Since on the safety of thy life alone depends Latinus and the Latian throne, refuse me not this one, this only prayer, to waive the combat and pursue the war. Whatever chance attends this fatal strife, think it includes in thine Æneid's life. I cannot live a slave or see my throne usurped by strangers or Trojan son. At this, a flood of tears Lavinia shed, a crimson blush her beauteous face overspread, varying her cheeks by turns with white and red. The driving colors, never at a stay, runs here and there and flush and fade away. Delightful change, thus Indian ivory shows, which with the bordering paint of purple glows, or lilies damasked by the neighboring rose. The lover gazed, and burning with desire, the more he looked, the more he fed the fire. Revenge and jealous rage and secret spite rolls in his breast and rouse him to the fight. Then fixing on the queen his ardent eyes, firm to his first intent, he thus replies: O mother, do not by your tears prepare such boding omens and prejudge the war. Resolved on fight, I am no longer free to shun my death, if heaven my death decree. Then turning to the herald, thus pursues: Go greet the Trojan with ungrateful news. Denounce from me that when tomorrow's light shall gild the heavens, he need not urge the fight. The Trojan and Rutulian troops no more shall die with mutual blood the Latian shore. Or single swords the quarrel shall decide, and to the victor be the beauteous bride. He said, and striding on with speedy pace, he sought his coursers of the Thracian race. At his approach they toss their heads on high, and proudly neighing promise victory. The sires of these Oedia sent from fore to grace Pelymnus when he went to war. The drifts of Thracian snows were scarce so white, nor northern winds in fleetness matched their flight. Officious grooms stand ready by his side, and some with combs their flowing manes divide, and others stroke their chests and gently soothe their pride. He sheathed his limbs in arms, a tempered mass of golden metal those and mountain brass. Then to his head his glittering helm he tied, and girt his fateful falchion to his side. In his Aeneid forge, the god of fire, that falchion labored for the hero's sire. Immortal keenness on the blade bestowed, and plunged it hissing in the Stygian flood. Propped on a pillar which the ceiling bore, was placed the lance Auruncan actor wore, which with such force he brandished in his hand. The tough ash trembled like an osier wound. Then cried, O ponderous spoil of actor slain, and never yet by Turnus tossed in vain, fail not this day thy wonted force, but go, sent by this hand to pierce the Trojan foe. Give me to tear his corslet from his breast, and from that eunuch head to rend the crest. Dragged in the dust, his frizzled hair to soil, hot from the vexing iron, and smeared with fragrant oil. Thus while he raves, from his wide nostrils fly a fiery steam, and sparkles from his eyes. So fares the bull in his loved female side, proudly he bellows and preludes the fight. He tries his goring horns against the tree, and meditates his absent enemy. He pushes at the winds, he decks the strand with his black hoofs, and spurns the yellow sand. nor less the Trojan in his Lemnian arms. To future fight his manly courage warms. He whets his fury and with joy prepares to terminate at once the lingering wars. To cheer his chiefs and tender son relates what heaven had promised and expounds the fates. Then to the Latian king he sends to cease the rage of arms and ratify the peace. The morn ensuing from the mountains high had scarcely spread the skies with rosy light. The ethereal coursers bounding from the sea, from out their flaming nostrils breathed the day, when now the Trojan and Rutulian guard in friendly labor joined the list prepared. Beneath the walls they measure out the space, then sacred altars rear on sods of grass, where with religious their common gods they place. In purest white the priests their hats attire, and living waters bear an holy fire. And o'er their linen hoods and shaded hair, long twisted wreaths of sacred Varian wear. In order issuing from the town appears the Latin legion armed with pointed spears, and from the fields advancing on a line the Trojan and the Tuscan forces join. Their various arms afford a pleasing sight. A peaceful train they seem, in peace prepared for fight. Betwixt the ranks the proud commanders ride, glittering with gold and vests and purple dyed. Here Menestheus, author of the Memnian line, and there Messapus, born of seed divine. The sign is given, and round the listed space each man in order fills his proper place. Reclining on their ample shield they stand, and fix their pointed lances in the sand. Now, studious of the sight, the numerous throng of either sex, promiscuous, old and young, swarm the town by those who rest behind the gates and walls and houses tops or line. Meantime, the Queen of Heaven beheld the sight with eyes unpleased from Mount Albano's height, since called Albano by succeeding fame, but then an empty hill without a name. She thence surveyed the field, the Trojan powers, the Latian squadrons and Laurentan towers. Then thus the goddess of the skies bespoke, with sighs and tears, the goddess of the lake. King Turnus' sister, once a lovely maid, ere to the lust of lawless Jove betrayed. Compressed by force, but by the grateful god, now made the nays of the neighboring flood. O nymph, the pride of living lakes, said she, O most renowned and most beloved by me. Long hast thou known, nor need I to record the wanton sallies of my wandering lord, of every Latian fair whom Jove misled to mount by stealth my violated bed. To thee alone I grudged not this embrace, but gave a port of heaven and an unenvied place. Now learn from me thy near approaching grief, nor think my wishes want to thy relief, while fortune favored, nor heaven's king denied, to lend my succor to the Latian side. I saved thy brother in the sinking state, but now he struggles with unequal fate, and goes with gods averse, overmatched in might, to meet inevitable death in fight. Nor must I break the truce, nor can sustain the sight. Thou, if thou dost thy present aid supply, it well becomes a sister's care to try. At this, the lovely nymph, with grief oppressed, tries to hold her hair and beat her comely breast, to whom Saturnia thus, thy tears are late, haste, snatch him, he can be snatched from fate. New tumults kindle, violate the truth, who knows what changeful fortune may produce? 'Tis not a crime to attempt what I decree, or if it were, discharge the crime on me, she said, and sailing on the winged wind, left the sad nymph suspended in her mind. And now Pomp, the peaceful king, appeared. 4 steeds the chariot of Latinus bare, 12 golden beams around his temple play, to mark his lineage from the god of day. 2 snowy coursers Turnus' chariot yoke, and in his hand 2 massy spears he shook. Then issued from the camp in arms divine Æneid, author of the Roman line. And by his side Ascanius took his place, the second hope of Rome's immortal race. Adorned in white, a reverend priest appears, and offerings to the flaming altar bears, a portrait and a lamp that never suffered cheers. Then to the rising sun he turns his eyes, and strews the beasts designed for sacrifice, with salt and meal, with like officious care, he marks their foreheads, and he clips their hair. Betwixt their horns the purple wine he sheds, with the same generous juice the flame he feeds. Æneas then unsheathed his shining sword, and thus with pious prayers the gods adored. All-seeing sun, and thou, Ausonian soul, for which I have sustained so long a toil, thou king of heaven, and thou the queen of air, propitious now and reconciled by prayer, thou god of war, whose unresisted sway the labours and events of arms obey, ye living fountains and ye running floods, all powers of ocean, all ethereal gods, hear and bear record if I fall in field, or recreant in the fight to Turnus yield. My Trojans shall increase Aventus' town, Ascanius shall renounce the Ausonian crown. All claims, all questions of debate shall cease, nor he nor they with force infringe the peace. But if my juster arms prevail in fight, as sure they shall, if I divine aright, my Trojans shall not over the Italians reign, both equal, both unconquered shall remain. Joined in their laws, their lands, and their abodes, I ask but altars for my weary gods. The care of those religious rites be mine, the crown to King Latinus I resign. His be the sovereign sway, nor will I share his power in peace or his command in war. For me, my friends, another town shall frame, and bless the rising towers with fair Lavinia's name. Thus he. Then, with erected eyes and hands, the Latian king before his altar stands. By the same heaven, said he, and earth and main, and all the powers that all three contain, by hell below, and by that upper God, whose thunder signs the peace, who seals it with his nod. So let Latona's double offspring hear, and double-fronted Janus what I swear. I touch the sacred altars, touch the flames, and all those powers attest, and all their names, wherever chance befall on either side. No term of time this union shall divide. No force, no fortune shall my vows unbind, or shake the steadfast tenor of my mind. Not though the circling seas should break their bound, overflow the shores or sap the solid ground. Not though the lamps of heaven their spheres forsake, hurled down and hissing in the nether lake, even as this royal scepter, for he bore a scepter in his hand, shall nevermore shoot out in branches or renew the birth. An orphan now cut from the mother earth, by the keen axe dishonored of its hair, and cased in brass for Latian kings to bear. When thus in public view the peace was tied, with solemn vows and sworn on either side, all dues performed which holy rites require, the victim beasts are slain before the fire, the trembling entrails from their bodies torn, and to the fattened flames in tortures borne.